We had a really nice roundtable on the topic of new media to attract new audiences to this nuclear security field. We were able to bring together a crew that had a deep expertise in a wide variety of new media backgrounds, but also folks that understood that and how it could be applied to the nuclear security proliferation field. And together it was a really nice mix that ended up with some really nice outcomes.
Most people associate nuclear weapons with the Cold War and the tension between the United States and the Soviet Union, but many are really surprised to hear that despite the reduction in weapons since the Cold War, there are roughly 16,000 nuclear weapons still remaining in the world, thousands of which are in a high state of alert and pointed at heavily densely populated cities.
But right now you have a massive population inside Iran, very young, that's ready to kind of get engaged in any type of social media, something like the Ice Bucket Challenge, like I mentioned. So, bringing celebrities from across the world and promoting this diplomatic success, I think would be a start.
Throughout recent histories, younger people are always concerned about the future, right? Because it's their future that have. They'll be here a lot longer than us. So when you start talking about justice and civil rights and LGBT rights, it's a lot of the young people that are really the ones that are being the catalyst for these movements. So it's also something that they can latch onto as a nuclear weapons issue, because it's not alone an American and Iran and Israel issue. It's not an India and Pakistan issue, or it's not a North Korea, South Korea issue. This is an issue that is a world issue. It's a global issue.
We think about millennials and how many of them were born after the end of the Cold War, and many of them aren't aware of the sort of experience that many people went through during the Cold War. And how can we really tap into them? And how can we use different media outlets to get through to them but not scare them? And then how might we get people to take action once they've received those messages?
We started out looking at a topic that many people are wrestling with right now. Given the profusion of new content out there and new media channels, what is sticking out? What's really raising to the surface? What's really becoming more effective? And what can we learn from that?
I think we have a really good example among us that we actually know a lot about in terms of the reasons for success or exactly what happened. And Erica, I'm going to come back to you to tell the story of Stuff.
The story of Stuff it's a 20-minute animation live action combo video that explains the unsustainable throughput of materials in a linear materials economy. Part of what made the project a success was being able to break a very, very complex topic down into something that, was layperson language and was, of course, bringing in some humor, because that's the other thing that I'll say is that, humor can obviously be a really useful tool.
The British Rail Authority wanted to produce something to get young people to stop trying to beat the train at rail crossings, to step back from the platform of the subway and things like that. They created a cell phone game called Dumb Ways to Die. That's very funny, and it went very viral amongst kids. Kids would discover it either through the YouTube video or through the mobile app, and it was hard to tell which was more powerful. But the two definitely worked with each other in a way that was very complementary. And the second thing was just the content of it, which is maybe speaks a little bit to what the millennials want, which is just tell me the truth, tell me what's actually going to happen. The thing was a little gruesome, and that really kind of resonated and was a big part of why it was so viral. So that whole tell the truth thing, I think, is part of it as well.
Certainly my 8 and 10-year-olds have been playing Dumb Ways to Die pretty much incessantly.
Research that we've done, for example, on a totally different topic like reproductive rights, we've learned by just asking the millennials for visual depictions of reproductive rights that they are completely turned off by scare tactics that we used to use in the 80s and that we continue to use still. We cannot fall into that same trap with this type of a topic.
One of the interesting things about the discussion was how frequently games, interactive games, computer games, video games came up as a good solution for this complex topic. For example, it actually is a way to actually show systems and how things connect within a system. It also has a way to interconnect people and make empathetic connections across global borders.
Some of the most interesting games don't tell any story, and what they do instead is they're an embodiment of a system. And so when you have a game that you can interact with as a system, really the story changes every time you play it. So the classic example of this that a lot of video game players know is SimCity. Embracing games as a new type of media, asking like, well, what is the actual system that's involved here, and what are the components and characteristics of that system, is a really interesting way to start if you want to look at games as a different type of medium rather than just a storytelling medium. And can I have a game that allows a person to experience that system and the various outcomes that come from playing around with that system, rather than trying to tell a story at all?
A lot of times I play these Middle Eastern terrorist roles or militant roles, and friends say, well, aren't you exasperating the stereotypes? But I feel like, if we get in there and get the emotional and the personal going, at least we open up that cultural discussion and get across kind of some form of cross movement between them. So video games would be key here to give us options, especially with the nuclear issue. There are alternatives such as nonviolent movements or nonviolent alternatives that could be used in a video game as an option for the user as they're going through a game. So I think new media is extremely key in bridging these cultures. Now, you could use them as a militant role or not, but it brings everyone together in this discussion, at least. And so it's happening in Iran, and you can have a very big populace there interested right now in some sort of new media that engages the nuclear issue.
Yeah, Farshad, I love that idea of that game that you're talking about, especially the part you said about the fact that the player can play either side of this particular conflict. And one of the things that's really, really powerful in games is the fact that we put the players in a role. You're taking a role and you're embodying that role. Games can be really, really good for expanding empathy across some divide or another.
We quickly focused on the key elements of new media that would be best applied to the complex field of nuclear security. We weren't just after getting eyeballs, but the right kind of eyeballs, and also getting people to act.
That the echo chamber is a real issue on any specialized target topic. The way to get out of that is to really reach out to influencers. And if you look at the bucket challenge and whatnot, it was really the influencers that took it out of that echo chamber. And so you have to be able to reach them. The people that take you over that tipping point are the people that make your story, the way that you put it, relevant to the people that you're trying to reach, which aren't in the echo chamber.
People that I've spoken to who've been involved with sort of discussions with Iranians, that so many of them really do want improved relations with the United States. And that's something that we don't see a lot here in the media. And so, the idea of how can we do better at sort of connecting the populations so that they can really be able to learn about the other, and so there's not such a demonization.
This regime that they have now in Iran is the best opportunity for us to get a nuclear deal done within the last 20, 30 years. And I think it's important that we take advantage of this crucial moment in time.
What I've come away from this session with is a more positive view about, okay, where might we go? How might we sort of have some kind of impact at reaching millennials? And that there does seem to be an opportunity not to just scare people so that they ignore the issue.
So getting movements within these countries and connecting them to our people here, I think that's key. And to me, that would be a major step. Now, whether with gaming or social media or celebrities or whatnot, I think that entity has to be empowered, and it's not in the equation right now. This needs to become something where people get engaged in afterward, not just click on it.